Major League Baseball, believe it or not, is still dealing with the fallout from their decision to move the All-Star game out of Atlanta. There are now a lot of people in politics, and certainly just a lot of fans in general, who are fired up about it. One of the people who is fired up about it is in politics. He is Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. He joins us now. Congressman, what was your immediate reaction? First of all, thanks for getting up with us. Second, what was your immediate reaction when you saw the news that Major League Baseball was pulling the All-Star game out of Georgia over the voting bill and not going to allow the Atlanta Braves to host this game?
Why can't we just play baseball? Why can't we just have sports be sports? I mean, why do you have to go after Mike Gundy when he fishes in the wrong shirt? I mean, the idea that somebody can almost lose their job because they went fishing in the wrong T-shirt is just ridiculous. So, this whole woke attitude that you have to weigh on anything, just play the game and let Americans enjoy the game. I love watching web gyms. I grew up in the '70s. I love the Big Red Machine. So let's just play baseball instead of getting political with everything.
Who did you grow up a fan of? Were you a Cincinnati Reds fan?
No, total Reds, man. We live about an hour and a half north of Cincinnati, and Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, Cesar Geronimo, Ken Griffey. I could name almost every player. Of course, everyone loved Pete Rose, so grew up in the '70s. I still remember Game 6 against the Red Sox. I let my mom and let me stay up. I was in 6th grade, and when Fisk hit it out, but before that, the play where Foster catches the foul ball, and the Red Sox got a guy on third, and I was telling him, let it fall, don't catch it, because I thought the guy was going to tag up and score. Foster catches it, throws it to the plate, and they nail him at the plate. It was one of the greatest plays ever. But then, of course, the next inning, Fisk hits it out, and the Reds lose. But everyone forgets that the Reds came back and won it in Game 7. So, yeah, love the Reds. Love the Reds growing up.
Wasn't there a great line from Pete Rose about how excited he was to get to play in a Game 7? Like, everybody was like, man, you guys just lost a chance to win a championship. And he was like, that kind of goes to the essence of how much he loved baseball, that even as he was facing a Game 7, he was like, man, as a fan, this is just amazing to get to play in this game.
Yeah, of course. You get to keep competing. And that's so American. Like, you get to keep competing. Every great athlete loves to compete. And he would love to win. We all hate losing. But the competition of it, and he got another game. That's Pete Rose, who loved to play the game. And that team was amazing. I think people forget the next year, if I got this straight, the next year I think they swept the Yankees. And Johnny Bench threw out, I think, Mickey Rivers, like every time he tried to steal. Johnny Bench was such a good catcher. It was fun as a kid, who loved sports and got to watch that all play out.
As a result, so you grew up a baseball fan, Cincinnati Reds fan. The Atlanta Braves lose the All-Star game. And you now, this morning, have sent a letter to Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball. What are you asking for him to do? What do you expect his response to be, if any?
Well, they'll probably tell us to go pound sand, but we're going to ask them for this information. And the simple fact is, they moved to Colorado, which has, quote, more restrictive voting laws than what they enacted in Georgia. They're headquartered in New York, which has more restrictive voting laws than what they are supposedly concerned about in Georgia. So this was just simple politics. I don't know if it had to do something with, he's in negotiation with the players union or what. I don't know what drove it, why they did what they did, but it makes no sense. And I think the American people are just we're tired of the cancel culture mindset. We're tired of all these corporations telling us how we have to act. And we're tired of the double standard. I mean, they're going to criticize the Georgia legislature, the duly elected Georgia legislature, the duly elected Georgia governor for enacting this law. But meanwhile, they're cozying up to China, cozying up to Cuba, and playing the games and doing the things that they're doing with those two countries, which don't have any type of freedom, don't treat people with the kind of respect individual and human rights like they should. So that's the part that just drives Americans crazy, is the double standard, the idea that they're better than us, they can do what they want, but somehow we regular people, we're wrong and we got to change things.
It's interesting. You are basically asking for any reason why they made this choice. But as you said to start off this interview, your preference would be, hey, I just want to sit back and watch Major League Baseball. I don't want to have to think about politics while the game is going on. And I think that's the general preference of almost every sports fan out there. Are you disappointed Major League Baseball has put you in this position where you even have to write this letter?
Of course. I mean, I remember when I first got in politics several years ago, Speaker Gingrich, he used to talk about the sports page is the one place you can go where they cover the winners. It's not all the negative news. It's not all the political stuff. It's not all the bad things that happen in our world, our culture. You just go cover who won the game. I mean, you used to be you could tune into ESPN and you could see who won the game and the top 10 plays of the day. But now you got to tune into ESPN. You got to hear a bunch of politics. I'd rather see the web gyms. I'd rather find out who won the games. I want to know what's happening in sports. But no, you can't do that now. They got to come at you with the woke left politics. So yeah, it's like, let's just get back to sports being sports, and let us enjoy that. Maybe get away from politics for a little bit. But now politics dominates everything, and I just think it's unfortunate. I think most Americans agree.
I want to circle back around to what you were saying, because I do think it's an incredible hypocrisy. In the same week that they pulled the All-Star game out of Atlanta, Major League Baseball announced a new partnership with China, and they said in the report, quote, "We're honored to team up with one of China's more forward-thinking, innovative, and successful companies." So they're fine being in agreement and entering into a relationship with China, but they're not fine with doing the same thing with Georgia. Not the country, the state.
Yeah, and what about the small businesses in Atlanta that were going to get all this money coming in, a windfall of business associated with the All-Star game? How about those forward-looking small business owners who've had to live with the year of COVID in the Atlanta metro area, and we're looking forward to this All-Star game and what that meant to their what that would mean to their bottom line? How about those companies who I will guarantee are much more forward-looking than some company in China? So that's again, this is the double standard that drives Americans nuts. And it seems to me, Mr. Manfred should have taken a thought about that a little bit before he made his decision. We'll see who he was communicating with. If we would ever get this material, the communication. I'd love to know who they were talking with. Were they talking with? What Democrats were they talking with, if any? I'd love to have access to that information and find out what they were doing and how this decision was really made.
No doubt. And also, as you point out, the state of New York, where Major League Baseball is headquartered, has more restrictive voting laws than the state of Georgia, where the All-Star game was going to be played, which is another irony because, as you well know, Major League Baseball has never, to my knowledge, undertaken any attempt to adjust the law in the state of New York, where it's headquartered.
No, because Democrat politicians weren't talking about it at the time. I mean, we know what's driving this, and it's unfortunate. That's where the culture is now, but we've got to push back. You guys have been great. You are. I've heard you so many times. You talk about Republicans buy sneakers too. It is bad business when they go down this road. You've talked about you are a 100% defend the First Amendment.
That's
and
right.
I tell people, this happened last week, Clay, where I got in a discussion with Dr. Fauci. It's like, for the last year, every single liberty you have as an American citizen under the First Amendment has been attacked. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble. When you got curfews, your right to assemble has been curtailed in the biggest way possible. Your right to petition your government. For 1 year, you, Clay Travis, cannot go to the Capitol. Any of the people who listen to your great program can't go to their Capitol to lobby their member of Congress, to petition them to redress their grievances. That has not been able to happen for 1 year in America. And then when you think, and if you dare speak out against this stuff, well, then they cancel you. Ask Governor DeSantis, who was having a meeting with a medical professor, doctor of the School of Medicine at Stanford, and he put that video online, and they took it down because how dare you talk with someone from a doctor from Stanford? They may not be scientific enough. I mean, this is how crazy it has become, and we get all the way to the point where baseball says we're not going to play a game in Atlanta. You got to be kidding me. So
we're talking to,
and this is I'm just going to say this is driving Americans nuts, and I appreciate you speaking out against it, and we need so many others to do the same.
Talking to Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio. So I came up on your House Judiciary Subcommittee and testified, and you took some of my testimony and tried to turn it into an amendment to the findings that were going on with that. What happened? Yep. How did the amendment? How was the amendment received?
All the Democrats voted against it because they like this cancel culture. I mean, by the way, the language you used in your testimony a few weeks back when we invited you as a witness in the sub was tremendous. You talked about the power that the big tech companies, the five big tech companies have relative to what was in the last century with Rockefeller and Standard Oil and Carnegie. You said it's so much more powerful today. And so we use that language to say it is time to look at breaking these companies up and using antitrust law. Certainly time for Section 230 reform that gives them the liability protection they currently enjoy. So we used that. We offered that as an amendment to a report that was going to come out of the committee, a committee report, and the Democrats voted against it. Republicans supported it, a party line vote, and which I think is sort of indicative of where the parties are on this whole cancel culture phenomenon. So we tried to offer it, but unfortunately it didn't pass.
Also controversy in your state involving the world of sports. There was a shooting by a police officer. We've talked about it a bunch on this program today because LeBron James weighed in and posted the photo of the Columbus, Ohio police officer. As more and more footage continues to come out, it looks like the police officer was actually the hero helping to protect an unarmed woman. What do you think about LeBron, who obviously is from Ohio, deciding to weigh in and basically dox a Columbus, Ohio police officer like he did?
Yeah, it's just wrong. I was struck. I said this on the interview yesterday. I think, what's the officer supposed to do? I mean, let something terrible happen to the girl who was the knife was coming at. Let that person be harmed. I mean, so the officer does it seems to me he does what he's trained to do. And the idea that then you have someone as well known as LeBron James do this, and now this, what this means for his family, I'm sure he's got to have protection now at his house and everything else. It's unfortunate. It's wrong. And frankly, what the left is now demanding of law enforcement, what the left with their crazy policies is demanding of our border patrol is these guys bust their tail. I was down on the border. I know how hard these guys work, and we know what law enforcement officers do. And now because of the left, that their job is just so much tougher. So I feel for these great people who actually protect our communities and protect our southern border.
Do you hear from your constituents very much about the intense political nature of sports now? You mentioned that you grew up a Cincinnati Reds fan just a little bit north of the city of Cincinnati. And I imagine that was something that was a unifying force all over Ohio, the Big Red Machine, how great they were, all these different players. And now I feel like a lot of people, when they put on television and they want to put their feet up and have a beer, the first thing they think about is not the game itself going on, but that sports has become politics by any other name.
Yeah, I do hear about it, and it's in that you're exactly right. I think that is where so many Americans are. They just prefer to watch the game, and we get enough politics. We get enough. There's enough division in the country. Sports is that great unifier. I mean, sports is it brings people together. You got different backgrounds, small town kids, country kids, suburban kids, urban kids, African American kids, white kids. They all come together and they all play the game, and you all play to win. And you and I have been in sports. We've had teammates from all different kinds of backgrounds. And when you're a teammate, you're just a teammate. And you want to help your teammate and you want to win. And it's like that's America. And yet now we got the divisiveness of politics coming into that, where it used to be this was something where you didn't have that. I think it's unfortunate. And like I said, I think a lot of Americans, when they turn on the sports on TV, they want to know who won the game and they want to see the best plays. They don't want to see someone giving them a lecture about politics.
Should fans be able to go if they want to go in totally normal stadiums now, in terms of we've got Texas where the Texas Rangers have opened up. I'm sure you've probably seen, you're a sports fan, like places like Ole Miss and Mississippi State are playing baseball in front of full crowds. And then you have other places where it's not allowed. I think the Washington Nationals have one of the most restrictive policies out there, and I know some of their players have even called it out. But is it high time to just allow people, given how prevalent the vaccine is, to allow people to go to games if they want to?
Yeah, of course it is. I saw your tweet a couple of weeks ago where I think it was a Mississippi game, or is it Southeast? The stadium was packed, and side by side. Where I'm from in West Central Ohio, we're way past it. I was at an event a few weeks ago, like 350 people in this room to speak to a group of folks, and not a mask in the room. I mean, we're done with it. We are ready to. It's serious. We all treat it as serious. We all have loved ones who've suffered from this terrible virus, but it is time to move on and get our liberties back and get back to living life the way Americans are supposed to live it.
So how does this end? I get asked this question a lot. So for most of our lives, politics and sports were separated. I'm not old enough to remember the 1960s when sports and politics kind of became intertwined, but obviously we moved through that era to the point where people around my age, even older people as well, have played mostly and been fans mostly of a non-political sports world. How do we get back to the 90s and the 2000s and the 80s and the 70s even to an extent, obviously coming out of the 1960s, where primarily sports were about sports, not politics by any other name?
Well, I'm actually, because I'm older, I'm actually when it was political to a degree, but it was what I call apple pie, God bless America political. It was during the Cold War. And I was a kid. I remember when the USA would take on the USSR in track and field. I remember every spring after the state wrestling tournament in Ohio, we would go to Toledo, Ohio, where the World Cup competition was, and the American team was taking on the Soviet team. And it was patriotic. It was like it was just so different than where we're at today. I long for those days, but I'd be happy to take just neutral, just let the game happen. But I grew up when it was Cold War politics, somewhat involved in sports, and I mean I love the
especially in international competitions. That's a good point. People would root so heavily for the United States because you were trying to triumph against communism. And so there was an intense pro-American spirit, the Miracle on Ice, certainly the battle. Yeah, the battle over the Olympics with 1980 and 1984 and the way that shook down. That was intensely political, but it was like everybody was pulling in the same direction, I guess, from an Olympic perspective. But I don't remember, just as a kid growing up, pro sports being political in any way. And now, it's basically it's politics in between the lines.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's again, I hope we can get back to that. Just like, let's play the game and let's enjoy the American pastime. We all love baseball. We love the NFL. We love college sports, for goodness sake. And now they're getting somewhat political. Like, let's just let the game happen. The lessons you learn in sports, the idea that you can set a goal, have a dream, work together with your teammates, make it happen. The discipline you get from competing and training and preparing to participate in sport is. Those are the good ideals. So let's get back to that.
Last question for you. How much better do you think your opening pitch would be than Dr. Fauci's?
Well, it couldn't be worse. I don't like this, I don't pretend to be the greatest athlete, but I know I could throw it better than that. I actually played baseball, for goodness sake. That was maybe the worst one in history. Was it closer to first base than it was, or third base? I mean, I can't even remember. It was closer to, I think, one of the bases than it was to the home plate. And he bounced it twice, not just once.
Congressman Jim Jordan, we appreciate the time. Thank you for writing the letter to Major League Baseball. I hope you get a response and they can start to make some sense of what was, I believe, an insane decision to pull the All-Star game out of Atlanta. Thank you.
You bet.